Good day. So for today's lecture, we will be discussing about the play of William Shakespeare, King John. But before we proceed to the play, let's have a little information about the author himself. Who is William Shakespeare? Well, William Shakespeare is an English poet, playwright, and actor, widely regarded as the greatest writer in English language and the world's greatest dramatist. He is often called England's national poet and the bard of Avon. King John the play was a historical play not just for King John but also for Queen Elizabeth's resemblance to King John's life. Example, King John succeeded the throne by will of his brother Richard, and Elizabeth succeeded by Henry's will when Arthur, son of Richard, should have it, and Mary, Henry VIII's elder sister's daughter, should have been queen to England. Another example would be when the Pope excommunicates both John and Elizabeth from the Catholic Church. He wrote the play King John, and here is something about it.
And I say, Chatillon, what would France without?
Thus, after greeting, speaks the King of France in my behaviour to the Majesty, the borrowed Majesty of England here.
A strange beginning, borrowed majesty.
Silence, good mother, hear the embassy.
Philip of France, in right and true behalf of thy deceased brother, Geoffrey's son, Arthur Plantagenet, lays most lawful claim to this fair island and the territories. To Ireland, Poitiers, Anjou, Touraine, Maine, desiring thee to lay aside the sword which sways usurpingly these several titles, and put the same into young Arthur's hand.
So now let us go to William Shakespeare King John's summary. And the next video will show you the summary of King John's play. Pay attention to it.
King John's authority is challenged by an ambassador for King Philip of France, who calls for Arthur, the son of the previous king, to be crowned in John's place. John refuses, and the ambassador is sent back to France with a declaration of war. At this crucial moment, a commotion arises between Robert Falconbridge and his brother Philip, simply known as the Bastard. Robert claims to be his father's true heir, while his brother is the illegitimate son of John's deceased brother, Richard the Lionheart. John declares Philip an official Plantagenet, knights him, and calls on him to join the war against France. When the two armies meet in France, they gather at the gates of a town called Angers. However, the citizens refuse them entry and propose that the two kings reconcile by uniting their families by way of a marriage between John's niece, Lady Blanche, and the conveniently single Louis the Dauphin. Upon entry into the town, Arthur's mother, Lady Constance, becomes furious at France's betrayal. To her relief, the papal legate, Cardinal Pandulph, arrives to chastise John for refusing to follow the Pope's orders. After John insults the Pope and all Italian priests, Pandulph excommunicates him and threatens the King of France with a similar fate if he fails to condemn England. Thus, the war begins again. The young Arthur is seized by John's men and imprisoned in a castle. Hubert, a loyal servant to John, is ordered by the king to burn out Arthur's eyes and kill him. Hubert fails to do so and lets the boy live. When he's left alone in the castle, Arthur tries to escape but slips and falls to his death. Constance, Arthur's mother, is inconsolable and loses her mind and eventually her life. When they discover the body of Arthur, the English nobles suspect King John of murder and offer their allegiance to France in retaliation. Hopelessly outnumbered, John asks for the Pope's support and reaffirms his loyalty to the Church of Rome. Even though Cardinal Pandulph is unable to convince the Dauphin to stand down, the Bastard, who is still serving John, leads the English army to a very precarious victory. On his way home, John is poisoned by a monk and dies in Swinstead Abbey, leaving his son, Prince Henry, to take the throne, and the bastard to dare the rest of the world to challenge England's authority.
If in case you didn't follow the video, here is a synopsis of the play you could read. This also tackles the summary of the play King John. After having the summary of King John, let us go to the use of language. As you begin to read the opening scenes of Shakespeare play, you may notice occasional unfamiliar words. Some are unfamiliar simply because we no longer use them. In the opening scenes of King John, for example, you will find the word sooth, that is truth, hope, that is helped, zounds, that is by Christ or God's winds, and peace, that is balance. Words of this kind will become familiar the more of Shakespeare's play you read. In King John, as in all Shakespeare's writing, more problematic words that are still in use but that now have different meanings. In the opening scenes of King John, for example, the word embassy has the meaning of message. Warn is used where we would say samad. Fronts is used where we would say foreheads, and likes where we would say places. Such words too will become familiar as you continue to read Shakespeare's language. Let us continue the discussion wherein we are going to discuss the King John theme. The first theme is power. When it comes to the theme of power, in King John, Shakespeare is mostly interested in the three questions. The first one, what makes a monarch fit to rule? Second, what gives a monarch the legal right to rule? And the third, what the heck happens when someone has the legal right to rule but it isn't fit to be a monarch? In the play, Arthur has the best legal claim to England's throne, but the problem is that he's just a little kid and he isn't exactly fit to rule. As we see, Arthur's legal right to rule is nothing without the power to back it up. That's why John, who has all the power, gets up to the crown until he gets poisoned by a monk anyway. The second and the last is a family. Family relationships are always messy in Shakespeare's play, especially when the royal families are involved. And by messy, we don't just mean complicated, we mean they're bloody too. In King John, an actor wants to snuff out his nephew. Mothers are accused of giving birth to bastard children, and two brothers squabble over land, Dong. Without further ado, let us go to William Shakespeare's King John style. It is a blank verse unrhymed iambic pentameter. In most of Shakespeare's play, upper-class characters tend to speak in what's called blank verse or unrhymed iambic pentameter, which is a pretty formal way to talk. Don't freak about the fancy names because it's all actually pretty simple. You'll see why in a minute. Commoners or everyday Joes tend to speak like we do in regular old prose. Since King John is all about royal families and their upper caste political allies, it makes sense that most of the play is written in blank verse or unrhymed iambic pentameter. The last topic that we are going to discuss is the William Shakespeare's King John influences and downsides. The John that emerges from these biographies is still a tyrant, but a more complex figure in a complex time. His importance for us is that his oppressions lead to the creations of a document that ensured they would not be repeated. For Church, the life of King John is the context from which Magna Carta arose. How John came to be seen as a tyrant who paradoxically gave us the cornerstones of English liberty, law, and democracy is at the heart of both accounts. As an English history play, King John is not great. Nevertheless,
Even though it does not rise to the heights of Richard II, it is in many respects as an excellent chronicle play. King John, marked by careful construction, good development of characters, strong dialogue, some good speeches, and several outstanding scenes. Yet, the key to the play's standing as a work of art in its own rights is its dramatic unity with England as a hero who vitally unites the various themes in the play. King John was a very considerable failure as a king. He loses large amount of possessions inherited, in particular lands in France like Normandy and Anjou. He manages to surrender his realm to the Pope and ends up facing a huge baronial rebellion, a civil war, and a war with France. In terms of failures, he is one of the worst kings. So that's the end of our lesson for today. Thank you for watching.